Tom shows up when, there's a price tag on the line. Lisa will be there as well.
This is such a load of like, I don't show up. Give me a break, man. If you're not getting educated about local and national market conditions, whether you're a real estate agent, you're in finance, accounting, you do mortgages, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine, and we've got a lot going on this week.
It's glad to have you back for everything going on.
I'm here. I have the highest attendance on Knowledge Brokers out of all three of us. I've actually calculated the data. So
the last 2 weeks hurt that attendance record. I'm sorry.
Sometimes things happen when I'm dealing with your jet setting schedule all over the country so we can fit in the pod. It's a little tough. So I'm just here selling houses and setting appointments. That being said, I mean, there's some things happening in the tech world I want to get to in a second. This disrupted business. CPI data, right? This was not a favorable report. We got the CPI data midweek. Consumer prices rose 3.5% from a year ago in March, and mortgage rates did not react favorably. We were seeing some 7 handles locally up from the mid 6s to the high 6s. If you look at the more specific measurements that they take, the CPI data put 12-month inflation at 3.5%, or a 0.3 percentage point higher than in February. There's volatile food and energy components where the CPI data accelerated 0.4% on a monthly basis. Not what people wanted to hear. And the market did not react favorably. Stocks slumped. Shelter and energy costs drove the increase on the all items index. I was hoping to see a little better inflation. I'm sure the Fed was too, which is probably pushing back any sort of interest rate cuts. How have you and your agents been reacting, Byron and Lisa?
You can go first, B.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just react to the economic news first. Surprisingly, actually, before I do, we've actually had our best week of under contracts this week, despite that. So that's interesting. I think it's more of a seasonality approach to the and the demand meeting the seasonality moment. But economically, if you look at, you mentioned the stock market. On the day the CPI came out, the stock market dropped considerably.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because there was a little bit of a head start on, Jerome Powell said he's going to make 3 cuts. Investors got ahead of that. And then they realized that might not actually be happening. We might not be seeing a cut as early as we had hoped for.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stock market reacted. But all week, I mean, even right now, we're recording this in the, a little bit after 10 a.m. here on Friday, and the Dow's down 300 points. It hasn't been a good week. And this was a CPI miss, but it wasn't a CPI that reflected current runaway inflation. You can look at some metrics that suggest over the last 3 months, inflation's a lot higher than the CPI report even suggests. You could look at it other ways and say, okay, well, maybe not. But we've had 3 months now of not great inflation reports. And just on this little hiccup, I said there'd be bumps in the road, and this is certainly a bump in the road, but a little minor bump, you see how heavy things can swing. You saw that the 30-year fixed off of where the 10-year went, 10-year going up over 44.5, the 30-year fix on Mortgage News Daily is now up over 7 3/8 from being in the high 6s recently. This is without we're not talking about a bank failure. We're not even talking about the word recession. So when we look at the economy and say, okay, unemployment is really low, job market's robust, the stocks really over the last 12 months have come back, have performed well. You would say strong economy, but people aren't feeling that. This past week, we have 23% less mortgage applications than the same week a year ago nationally. As much as we talk about pent-up demand, and pent-up demand is real, it's still locked up because of the affordability issues that we're facing. This economy, it's one of the reasons why President Joseph Biden Jr. is polling so poorly right now. It's because while you would think low unemployment numbers, great economy, that people would support the next president, but most people are feeling a much different economy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons the job numbers are so, are doing so well is because people are having to pick up second and third jobs, picking up an Uber account to make ends meet because inflation is hitting the everyday American. And hopefully this doesn't get into a situation where you have, runaway inflation. If you look at the core inflation number, there was an article on CNBC, they annualized 3 months, and that would be reading 8% right now. So that's a number we need to stay away from. We get anywhere close to that, we're going to be talking 8+ on the 30-year fixed. So I'm starting to become of the belief that this economy is pretty fragile. We need to recognize that, understand that. Do not mislead consumers of thinking that the 2-year period that we spent of having fairy tale 30-year fixed mortgage rates are coming back potentially ever in the next decade. When I talk about 3% interest rates, I don't see that at any point in the near future.
Yeah, I agree. I think looking at it from the perspective of what we're chatting about with agents, I think it's a lot of helping consumers understand options that are available. Though what I will share, and I think, Byron, much like you, we had one of our biggest week of accepted offers and new pending deals that we've seen probably in the past 52 weeks all in. If I look at the rolling year, it was actually a really strong week. I think it's interesting looking at what's happening with our inventory here in Massachusetts. And I'm, curious if it's similar for you, but we're seeing that our numbers have actually across Massachusetts are starting to come up to match and maybe even outpace where they were this same time last year. And so I think, while it's not great news, I also think that consumers are getting a little bit used to it and understanding that the volatility is day to day. There's a difference between what happens with going under contract now doesn't mean we have to lock the rate right now. One of the biggest things that we're coaching to is understanding what happens when rate locks expire, because those contracts that were put under 30 to 45 days ago at very different rates, 60 days ago, new construction stuff where rate locks are always kind of, whether we make it or not or need an extension, is definitely something to keep on the radar. I suspect we'll see some deals fall out because of it if we're not careful. But I don't necessarily think it's going to impact whether consumers are moving forward and choosing to buy or sell. That's my personal opinion.
Your take on inventory, Lisa, is really accurate here because I just pulled up this ResiClub March for 2023 to March 2024 inventory growth chart. I'll share it with Bobby to put in the post edit. Pennsylvania's up 5%. Yep. Massachusetts up 4%. Connecticut is pretty flat right now. But I mean, you're seeing a lot of states, with the exception of really, it looks like it's just Nevada and Illinois and New York. They're the only negative inventory states in the country right now.
Connecticut's negative March over March.
It's so small on the map, I can't see it. So that would be it's not even on the map. I mean, you could talk to Lance about this. We'll get him back on.
There's not many actually. There's not many. And then if you look at some of the states that I think are a precursor to this, where if you're sitting in a state right now where you're like, okay, my inventory just hasn't come back. It's either flat or it's down, like Tom's saying. Well, then you look, and I don't know if you're looking at the same map that I've recently saw there, Tom, but if you look at Florida, exponentially up
57%.
57%.
Bananas.
What's Texas in the 30s?
31. Well done, my friend.
31% on Texas. You have all these countries in the Sun Belt, and what do we historically know? They start about 12 months ahead. I'm telling you, Northeast, you fast forward 12 months from today, you're going to be living in a much different inventory environment. If you're an agent 3 years or less in the business, it's going to be an inventory environment that you've never experienced before in your career. So the skill set is different. The conversations, how you're able to attack listings from an expired, canceled, and a service standpoint, all of that's going to change in 12 months. I'd start getting ahead of it now. Because I believe those opportunities are going to be there. We're going to start to even see it. Listen, this number, the numbers that we're talking about economically with the CPI, you get a couple more months of these prints, you'll see inventory middle of this year in parts of the country that you weren't experiencing it, because it's going to force some homeowners into a position where they're becoming sellers ahead of schedule.
Yeah, I think I'm super cognizant. So looking at Massachusetts data, right? It's one thing to look at the inventory that's sitting on the market, our listing units. Another number that I always track is the listing units taken. So the number of listings that we've entered into MLS so far this year, and that number is up 10%. The number that are sitting on market is up maybe 4% or whatever you showed there. But what I'm showing for the number of units that have been signed is already climbing up 10% from this same time last year. And we're actually getting close to the same number of listings that we signed in 2022. And I'm willing to bet that within the next 3 months, if we did this same time next quarter, that we'd see that our inventory in terms of listing units signed is going to be on par with, if not surpassing, where we were in 2022, which is an interesting kind of facet to look at. And then from the sellers becoming sellers before because of feeling the impact, I don't know about you guys, but we're facing up here in Massachusetts override after override on property taxes to start to fund some of the services, which are definitely starting to have impact as it prices people out of being able to afford the increase in property taxes alone.
Wait, can you break that down? You said override.
Yeah, explain this.
Yeah.
So in Massachusetts, we have laws that state that property taxes can only increase by a certain percentage year over year. And if a community needs to increase beyond that set percentage, it goes to vote for within the town community. So we've had a handful of special elections going on to determine whether residents of towns are going to support an increase in property taxes to fund critical services. The big ones that are shaking out are schools over and over and over. It seems like the schools are starting to take the hits as there isn't the budgets to support wage growth and supplies and all of the other services that go into keeping those things running. One community.
That's a good thing for Massachusetts because those schools are overrated anyway.
You can be a hater all you want, but schools are, I mean, they're important, right? And
they're very important. Yeah.
It's interesting because especially in Massachusetts, when we're working with consumers, a lot of consumers pick communities based upon school systems, right? Like I'm sure they do in Connecticut and in Pennsylvania as well. And so residents are choosing, that conversation. A lot of what I hear in these community meetings is if we don't approve the override to increase property taxes, we could be tanking our property values. And so, go ahead.
Have there been any, probably not, but have there been any superintendents of these schools? Because you see it in a, like Lisa, remember during COVID, I know that as we were all making decisions to cut, all three of us as leaders of our companies would have been the last ones to be paid in that scenario. Have you seen any superintendents or principals say, you know what, I'm going to take a 25% reduction in my pay to, just to help, like every number counts. Let's really go through the P&L here of the school and make it work. Anybody do that?
Not that I've heard, and truthfully, I've not been involved in all the details of everyone that's shaking out. But I do know there was a pretty well-known school district up here in Andover, which just sent layoff notices to over 20 teachers and a handful of like custodians and that kind of stuff, libraries, teachers, janitorial staff, all being cut because of lack of ability to fund it. And then they've announced that there'll be another round of layoffs coming as well. And those teachers are consolidating classrooms, so therefore making larger class sizes. But I did not hear that there was anything that shook out with the superintendent level. But fascinating because what I kind of toss back to that at some level, excuse me, is COVID was maybe a little bit different because I think that was looking at a catastrophe, right, if you will. And I think where we stand right now is it's partly inflation. And I'm not going to get into the political debate about how much a superintendent is paid and if they're worth it. But I think a part of it is that we all need to be realistic that as inflation continues, teachers and those who teach our children actually sometimes do deserve and need the increase in pay in order to maintain their jobs and their positions. But inflation shaking out everywhere, right?
I would agree. The good ones definitely deserve to be paid accordingly.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Providing value to our children from educational standpoint, we can all agree on that.
Yep.
What I would say is a catastrophe is the situation that we're in with inflation. That is a catastrophe. So it's not
Okay.
COVID where everybody got really nervous during that time period and there was some real health concerns and all of that. But economically, this is a catastrophe, and it's something that will likely not be addressed. So we're going to kick the can down the road further. There'll be a lot of pressure on the Fed coming into November to eventually make cuts. Because, okay, if you're sitting in the office, if you're in the current administration, I'm going to pressure the heck out of the Fed if I'm in the current administration, even if it means that inflation might be worse in 2025. Because either way, if I win in November, I'll deal with the problem then. I've got 4 more years. Maybe they'll forget about it come 2028. Or if I lose, I'll hand it off to the next guy and just point the finger at him. So they're not going. Here's my thing. If inflation is rearing its head again and is becoming a potential major issue for our economy, I don't believe it's going to be addressed. Meaning, I don't think Jerome Powell is going to increase rates, which you're now for the first time hearing some people say he needs to increase again to stop inflation. I don't think he's going to cut in the first half of the year like we were promised. I think he's going to hold course. And as we get closer to November, the pressure is going to mount to cut, whether the inflation reports back that decision or not. You could argue that the last 3 months do not back, especially now after the recent one, a cut.
I agree. Well, slightly pivoting, another catastrophe, Tom Toole.
Yeah, Tom,
I got a
talk about
catastrophe.
your catastrophe, because this one is something I think agents right now in the landscape, there's a lot of agents making software decisions. Tom is in the middle of a software catastrophe.
So this sucks. I'm just going to be very clear about it. Now, the flip side of this, before I get into all this, is that there are things you can do and take control over a short period. So the short of this is Boomtown. I've been a very big proponent of Boomtown for a long time. Got a lot of love for the company. They have been down going on day 3 now. The entire platform. You can't go to my website. I just sent a big direct mail campaign out. This is fantastic. Like, I'm really excited about this. You can barely access the CRM. It's kind of hit or miss. The mobile app is slightly functional for me. It's not for other people that we know. I'm able to see like names and phone numbers. Sometimes I get notes. Sometimes I don't. And probably more concerning, I've been heard it's an IT infrastructure issue with their vendors. I don't know what that means. Maybe Lisa does. She's probably the most tech savvy out of the 3 of us. Maybe we can get Sheila ready to dial in here. She'll know what's going on. On top of that, it's, I've got agents that are coming into our organization on Monday. And what's the first thing you train these people on? How to use the CRM, how to keep your pipeline organized. I've been told from people on the inside that we should safely be able to start onboarding and orienting those people. This reminds me, did you guys ever watch The Walking Dead? Like when like the when it goes down and like things start happening and you're in like day 3 and nobody knows what to do and you're not getting answers. That's how I feel right now. And it's troubling because we've got phone numbers attached to this that people call and text from. So now they're texting you, Lisa.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
They're calling you. I don't know if it's routing. They're responding to the email that is masked with the CRM. I haven't had any come through. I've heard mixed feelings on both, right? I mean, we have advertising that runs to our site that we're through Google. And all that being said, I've set some listing appointments the past couple of days. I've taken control. There's things to do. We gave our team about this, but it doesn't matter. When you have a principal at your company that is, if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. Well, you're kind of screwed. And my concern with this is, you're down a couple hours, fine. I get it, whatever. We all know that Boomtown was sold, right? Boomtown got sold to Inside Real Estate. This never happened before that sale went on. I've got a lot of love for, Boomtown and the people there. My concern is that now, like, what does this all mean? Like, where are we going here? None of the other Inside Real Estate platforms are down. only Boomtown is down. So KV Core is running, BT Pro's running. Not a great time on April 12th, the middle of the spring market, when I'm trying to set appointments and I can't even, I mean, I don't like calling people blind. Like, I don't think that's a great strategy. I mean, I can call my sphere. There's a lot to talk about. That's what's going on, everybody.
I think
Happy
we want to,
Friday.
and I want to take that catastrophe that you're dealing with and help agents and knowledge brokers make a decision who are thinking about obviously how they should be operating with their CRM, so we can have that discussion. Just for those that are unfamiliar with Boomtown or have limited familiarity, Boomtown is front-facing consumer website, IDX fed, back-end CRM. So it offers both. Obviously, like Follow Up Boss is just back-end CRM, can attach to any front-facing website. I use Follow Up Boss, and then I have Sierra Interactive on the front-facing website. Sierra is a competitor to Boomtown, actually does both. I think Sierra is in a unique position because of these acquisitions, actually. Inside buying Boomtown, Zillow buying FUB. I think Sierra now is maybe in a spot where they can pick up a lot of market share because people have concerns about those two acquisitions for different reasons. Lisa is built out on Real Geeks, which is technically would be similar to Sierra, where you have back-end CRM and front-facing website.
Correct. Yep.
So these are some of the different CRM players. Who else would be a player right now in the landscape?
Chime. Conversion.
Chime's owned by who though?
I'm not
Chime
sure.
Chime to get bought. All right, so you have Chime.
Yeah.
There's Lofty.
Isn't Lofty and Chime the same now?
Maybe.
So there's Conversion, Sync, Real Geeks, Lion Desk. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I think that's probably still a thing. Sorry, Lion Desk, if you're like roaring out there. And
Top Producer, is that
I was
still
just
out there?
going to say Top Producer. Gosh, I mean, there's so many, right? There's also all those small little ones that kind of shake out separately, and then the big ones that are non-real estate specific. You could think Salesforce, you could think Zoho, but I think we covered the big ones.
HubSpot, Next Level. Yeah. All right. So this is, Lisa, what would you do? Would you have a backup plan? Obviously, Tom doesn't have a backup plan. Tom, what have you been in Boomtown? A decade?
8 years, 9 years. Yeah, close to that.
I technically have a backup just the way I'm set up. Like if, I wouldn't have a backup for front-facing website because I only have front-facing website Sierra, but Sierra and Follow Up Boss talk to each other. So I have a backup CRM, but I don't have backup on front-facing website, which would be almost impossible, I think, for anybody to have a backup front-facing.
I don't know how you
website.
do that. I mean, that's the. Like, what are you going to have another web? Like, then you're paying for two vendors.
No, that's for the once in a decade situation. Like, Lisa, what would you be doing right now besides breathing fire down the necks of executives? What would you be doing if you were Tom Toole? What could he do differently?
I mean, well, it's interesting, right? I'm going to guess that hopefully all of our agents keep their hot prospects where they've got them noted in their phone. Tom, I didn't even think about all of the texting that happens through the CRM. We do that too. We don't use it for inbound phone calls, those numbers, but we do a ton of texting through the CRM.
If someone calls the text number, right? Like that's, I mean, you can't, and I mean, so that's the challenge here is when someone does that.
You don't know what phone number the consumer has saved. Have they saved the CRM number? Have they saved? And that's how they're communicating.
Right. Yeah. I didn't even think about that until you just said it, which is crazy, fascinating. I'll be totally honest. I don't have a true backup plan. And I think that when you look at it as your CRM or your contacts get bigger, right, there's always the ones that you're in contact with and you're working, and those are kind of easy, right? Because hopefully you've got them in your phone, you've kind of established communication and you're in rapport. Our database has 107,000 contacts in it, and all with some sort of action plan or campaign associated with it. And I'm going to be completely transparent. I would be lost. I've never experienced more than, like you said, like a couple of hours. And I was just like, I text the head of Real Geeks and I'm like, yo, WTF, right? And they usually get it solved, but I can't imagine days. And even just the IDX search, where we do so much work to understand what the consumer is doing and help them see that we're reliable and predictable. And Oh, Tom, I'm
Th-
sorry.
Tom, this is not just Tom Toole organization. This is spread across the country on every Boomtown user.
You should
Yeah.
see this like comment platform on Facebook right now. I mean, it's like it's people are very upset, and I
DJ
think
and Lindsay, have you chatted with them?
I have. I've talked to Karen Peters, Doug Edrington. I mean, a lot of people we know here, and there's things like we're sending an email out to the database today because we have a separate email list that we use.
Right.
Hey, we're having our communication systems are down. We're very sorry for this. I should have done this probably yesterday, but like like then where do we route everything to? Are they going to all call the office? I mean, this isn't scalable.
That is a form though of a backup plan, and we have the same thing. We
do
have our
have
email
that.
living on another platform, so that's good. You need to have your emails saved elsewhere. What I'm really big on right now is obviously the operating platform Mosaic. What's more important right now, Lisa, maybe or Tom, for the knowledge broker to be focused on? Obviously, CRM is really important for us to filter through the massive lead generation that we do. But there was a recent seller generational report done by NAR that says 65% of sellers select their agent either because it was when they list their home, because the agent they worked with in the past, or because of a referral, not agent referral. That was like 3 or 4%. That was like nothing.
That was 4%.
It was a referral from friend, family member, colleague, somebody that they trust. 65%, almost 7 out of 10 sellers select their home, their seller, their listing agent rather, that way when they go to sell their home. And that speaks to being able to nurture your clients, your lifetime clients, in an operating platform over time. And it's a different game than what FUB does to get people to resurface after 18 months. So for the knowledge broker that's like, hey, I'm really focused on serving my client, how should they be thinking about where they host their clients?
So with Mosaic, we're onboarding to that system now, and we've had a couple great calls with Sheila. What I love about this, you guys know Amy Stockberger, right? So she has her lifetime home support team. Genius, because most of the real estate needs happen outside the transaction, right? Getting someone to stain your hardwood floors, Byron, or someone that can come and fix your roof. And and what they have the ability to do, instead of manually doing everything, you can send out time vendor recommendations to people. Like, that's value-based, right? Like, I mean, it's so hard finding good contractors. So something like that is super helpful. Being able to, and that's probably one of the best things an agent can do is like, hey, if you need a contractor referral, I've got one for you. And making sure you have those people in a stable that, it's high pressure. Like, hey, don't screw this up because these are my clients. Right. I love that. And just having it systemized, I think that's really, really helpful. You can go to the vendor list online and pull it. That to me is one of the most valuable things you can be doing to nurture those clients, because it's something they actually need that you get no value out of, right? It's just helping them out.
Well, and it's giving them a different experience level. Like if you're treating your clients like you're treating your leads and they're all in the same system, then they're getting the same experience. There's going to be a lot of conversations right now as we're looking for more exclusive relationships, particularly on the buy side, where we're going to be having conversations that look like, hey, with all of my clients, they have access to X, Y, and Z services. And this is what my clients, that verbiage coming from trusted advisors, you, the real estate professional, the knowledge broker, is going, the really good ones is going to become commonplace. And consumers are going to say, well, I want access to those things. So great. Let's have a conversation about how you can become one of my clients and I can earn the right to work for you in this fashion. And I really think agents got to separate this whole thing and have two different experiences for customers and leads than they do for their clients. Personal finance person, for example, has a semi-annual call with their clients. I was just at a lunch with a great agent down here in Naples yesterday, and he talks about the timeline for people that move to a market like this, where it could be 12, 18, 24 months because you have somebody that comes down for a week. They start thinking about it, but they're a true buyer. They're in the funnel is a lot longer. They're in the funnel for 24 months.
Right.
Well, hey, if you want access to all of my on and off market properties And what I do for all of my clients is I get on a semi-annual call, educate them on how the market's changing, how things are shifting, what are the opportunities. I work by agreement, and I'd like to take the time to show you exactly what that looks like to be in my client base as opposed to my customer base. Either group, hey, if you're my customer base, I'll set you up on a search, I'll drip on you, I'll reach out to you from time to time, all of those things. But you're not going to get access maybe to my on and off market properties that I'm sourcing. There was another big key stat in that generational report. It was that 50% of buyers expect that are hiring a buyer agent, expect their buyer agent to help find the property as their number one. 50% of buyers say, number one most important thing to me is my agent helps me find the property. That does not mean set up showing time, open doors. It means actually having on off market properties, bringing properties to them along with the screenshots from Zillow that they're sending you. Big difference there.
And not just off market. What I'll say, I think one of the biggest values that a buyer agent can bring in that situation is understanding what's important to the consumer and challenging them to think about different options. So if we know it's one town, what if we find similar homes one town over, right? If it's a certain feature, what if it's, I don't know. It's not, off market is definitely a part of it. I think off market's going to become a huge part of it on a move forward. But I think where agents have missed in the past is that we've relied on easy IDX searches off of our websites and thought that that was good enough and that that was presenting options to clients. And I argue the complete opposite, that it's knowing the inventory, knowing the markets, and really being able to dig into even what's on market to help consumers think about things a little bit differently.
Well, most agents don't set up these IDX feeds properly. I mean, you're into the CRM a lot, and I don't know what your markets are like, but we'll get people where they use like the mapping feature and they cut out half of the town. Like that's a bad move. I'd be looking at municipal and school district boundaries and then the adjacent municipal and school district boundaries. Like, hey, I know your kid goes to private school. Why don't we look at this next town over, right? I'm not sure if this is going to be for you, and bringing options to the table. And then additionally, Lisa, you got to look at those homes that have been sitting on the market. Like 100%. You see a 14 or a 21 day on the market, that's opportunity. Let's make an offer. Because most agents, this script has helped me sell hundreds of homes. Hey, most agents and most people, they're afraid to negotiate in today's market. They think they have to come in and pay full price. We know what the stats say. Our list to sales price ratio is 100.2 to 100.8% in the suburbs. But here's the thing. The average time on market's only 30 days. This home's been on the market 45. So a lot of buyers are shying away. The most savvy home buyers, they'll go in, we'll write a competitive offer, we'll get all the intel, and we'll see if we can secure this for a number that probably would have sold out on the market or maybe even a little higher. But we have the ability to go in now and write this offer. Let's be super strategic here. That's bringing value to the transaction.
100%.
So, and I love the adjacent town search. This is one of, like, someone says, I want to live in, whatever town, right? I only want to live in downtown media. That's a thing here. Well, there's all these places outside that you can get there in 10, 15 minutes. And we live in the age of Uber, where walkability isn't the big deal that it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. The more options you bring to the table, get people thinking. Because most buyers, they don't know what they want. They really don't know until they see it. And that's why you might need to tell them, hey, we're going to look at some bad homes to get into some good homes. And then there's a whole process to this that folks just don't. They want to show one house, Byron, and they want to sell it. That's the agent mentality.
Start treating buyers as a significant asset. I mean, Lisa's made it known, hey, being a great or a badass buyer agent is so valuable right now. And it's so valuable, to your point, Tom, if you're bringing value. Right now, as inventory is going up, there is a huge opportunity to use that buyer exclusive relationship as an asset or as a lead generator for more listings. So a lot of buyer agents fall into the trap of relying on only direct mail to generate off-market opportunities for their buyer. It's the I have a buyer searching in your neighborhood letter. Sharon Srivatsa just put out a great scripting saying, stop saying I have a buyer. And I agree with him. When you think about this, I have a buyer is about who? You, the agent. Calling or sending a letter that says, My client needs to move into the neighborhood in the next 90 days. They've asked me to reach out to folks like yourself who have considered selling in the past. This could be somebody who was on the market 2 years ago, came off the market, but I wouldn't just rely on the letter. You know, Sharon was talking about an example of letter. I'd be making that call. My client, when you start with my client, it's about them. It's about their family. It's about their need. It's about their situation. I have a buyer. Sounds like I have a need to cash in on a commission as a buyer representative. When you make it about them, you're going to increase your chances of obviously uncovering opportunities that aren't living on Zillow and on Realtor.com and these other portals that consumers are looking at. You're going to create more relationships in the community, increase your opportunity for listings, and you're going to show your buyer that you're bringing them extreme value. So right now with inventory going up, there are so many opportunities for agents to be creative, to be on the phones more, and to really be that agent that's making moves for the clients.
What I'll add just as a last ticket to this or piece to this is that I actually think it's actually going to be critical. I shared with you too. I was on a call with my attorney this morning and we were chatting about what's going to shake out with the contracts and what I need to build for our agents to protect us, keep us compliant and all of that. And one of the things that came out is I think before today, really thinking that we would come out with 3 different kind of contracts, a single property or a single day, a non-exclusive and an exclusive. And I was thinking that it would almost kind of be like a pivot from one to the next to the next. But as I chatted it through with my attorney, we kind of came up with the fact that it's going to be totally non-exclusive and exclusive, right? And the non-exclusive is, I think, where a lot of agents are going to end up landing in first as they learn the scripting, as they become more confident, as they understand their own value and their own worth, but also as they adapt to the new normal. And that non-exclusive says that the only time the agent gets paid is when they are the one who shows the property to the consumer. And
You're
it's going to be
protected on that property.
right if you show it. And so the crazy thing is it's going to force agents to bring properties to consumers, because if we're going to lean on the consumer just to reach out to us, I think they're going to lean out to whoever's cheapest, right? But if we can be getting properties in front of consumers and challenging them to think about things a little bit differently, it's easily a way to show value to segue into the exclusive contract, but it's also going to be the only way that you get paid.
And I
I'm
think
passionate about this.
And I think what Lisa's saying here is that you said something. I think agents are going to be in this non-exclusive category. The knowledge brokers who haven't met the person face to face or only have done a Zoom consult are going to be in the non-exclusive. Now, once you meet face to face and you have the opportunity to get in front of somebody and interview for the position of working by agreement exclusively,
Yes.
and the benefits that come with that, we all agree that you're going to increase your odds,
Without a doubt.
exponentially by getting those signed.
Without a doubt, that's game changing, but that's an interview where you really have to sell. Like, why do agents typically start with buyers? Because it's easier. We've never historically had to ask for payment, right? Because you knew that you got paid if you just showed up and opened the door. And I think that where there's going to be a little bit of a level set is that for the agents that aren't prepared to show up, do the interview, ask for the commission, and be able to prove what they're worth, commission, payment, whatever we want to use in the new era.
Fee.
Yeah, fee. It's going to be a little bit harder because they're not going to be able to make that pivot into the exclusive, right? And I also think it's going to be, again, off markets will be definitely a part of this. But if you're not the one who's bringing other properties to them to see, other agents are going to be doing it. And I believe that solidly. And it's, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Yeah, well, I think some agents are going to say, well, I don't want to work these non-exclusive contracts. And I got a spoiler alert for them. They already have been. That's what people have been doing. It's already been non-exclusive. So now you've got to show up and be ready for an interview.
Yep.
And be ready to explain stuff.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to be paid for every minute that you work, go take $19 an hour from Redfin or whatever the average agent makes over there. And they'll do that deal for you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that either, by the way.
Right.
That works for some licensed professionals. I don't think that fits into this category of being the knowledge broker. But it works for some people. It's
And
out
some
there. It's
people
an
are always
option.
going to they're always going to take the cheapest option, Byron. There's a consumer that will always go that way no matter what. And
And there's a professional that'll go that way. It's like,
yep,
okay, I want to be a time puncher. I want to be a clock puncher. I want to know exactly what I'm getting paid for each hour. And if I'm not getting paid for that specific hour, I don't want to do the work. And you see it, there's no ceiling on real estate income. The great sales professionals, consultants, knowledge brokers understand that it's a value exchange. The more value I bring, the more opportunities I'm going to cash in on, the greater the impact I'm going to have, the more name I need is going to be passed along from consumer to consumer, client to client, where my business just keeps growing.
this is a great segue to this report from the Consumer Federation of America, right? So this is on BAM. Great article here. Sarah Lentz wrote this. The report was authored by senior fellow Stephen Brobeck, and he argued that decoupling commissions in real estate will help both buyers and sellers get better service from their agents at a lower cost. He gives an overview of recent events in the industry, and then the press release takes for granted what the Sitzer Burnett plaintiffs alleged in their claim. It says currently mandatory commission compensation offers from sellers to buyer agents resulting in coupled commissions are not negotiable, and so allow realtors to collude in setting high and uniform commission rates. I can't get over these statements. I'm going to give you some scenarios. I want to see if any of these have happened to you. Have you ever had an agent rebate back part of the commission at settlement on the buy side via Visa gift cards or giving a seller assist with a credit? That sounds negotiable to me. Have you ever had, we talk about Redfin, right? They offer rebates to folks. I mean, this stuff happens all the time. Chris Smith put out something that I found really interesting. He said the idea that consumers didn't know commissions were negotiable is hogwash. If that were true, then why have agents constantly been asked if they will lower their commission for decades? I don't know where the government is coming from on this. I know your attorney had the same opinion, Lisa. This is just, I don't understand how much further this is going to go. You have the president saying commissions are negotiable for the first time. This is a narrative we got to break.
Agreed across the board. I think it's fascinating. We've been talking about it for a long time. I think you look at rebates, you look at closing gifts. I'll even toss out a little bit faux pas some of the ways that we're saying it, but there's a reason that if we look at all three of our businesses, and we were doing this a little bit before the pod started, and we look at what the average, can I say that word? But I don't even know what I can and can't say at the moment. But if I look at the retained buyer agent commission that I'm running year to date as a percentage on each transaction, all three of us have different numbers. And to me, when you look,
and they're wildly different when we looked at them.
Right. And that alone kind of like if you polled 50 different agents and said, what is the average retained on either a buy side or a sell side? Because we did the same exercise on our sell side. I'm still mid-process on one of the things that I committed to after one of our debates the other day was looking at all of our closed transactions from 2023. I know what we retained on the average sell side. Our closing disclosures should actually spell out what the listing brokerage was paid as their commission as well. It would be interesting because then it'll start to allow us to see what was the average per agent, but we can also look at what was the average in the marketplace. And I'm going to guess, again, it's wildly different from agent to agent, from market to market. And the fact that anybody thinks that it would just be a straight 3% or 2% or 2.5% or whatever numbers we're throwing out is just like crazy.
I mean, we have buyers that come up to our agents and they say, I want part of your commission to go show this house. That's negotiable. I mean, that's exactly the opposite of what this facade is that's being put out there. And we can go into how everything failed with the lawsuit and everything else, but it's ridiculous.
Well, one of my agents has a client who he's done 7 transactions with. This particular home that they're about to list is a home that the client went way over asking price on during the multiple offer craze. And the client came back to the agent and said, hey, you're worth every penny of this negotiated commission on this one deal. And this client's always buying property, investor, right? On this one deal, can we negotiate to this number? Because here's where my margins are. because of what I paid way over, and we've done 7 deals, and it's not going to reflect your future. Like it's this one scenario. We need a customized approach here. And they worked it out, and they ended up landing in a place that was fair to the margin for the seller, fair to the work that the agent is doing on the list side, fair to the buyer compensate. They want to offer a buyer compensation. So they ended up making a fair agreement, but the client was like, listen, I'm going to acknowledge here on this deal, you're definitely worth more. We're going to make it up on another deal where the margins are a little bit better. But these conversations have happened my entire career. Me and Lisa pointed this out on last week's pod. If you want to get just a little bit, which, it's one of the ones Tom missed, but if you want to get a little bit of insight of how, I mean, we're talking about a Consumer Federation report, but just how everyday people, they're not necessarily everyday people because they were all very wealthy people, but big audiences are talking about this. Not everybody, but there is a consensus out there that 6% is locked in, and it's just not true. Every deal's negotiated. You look from market to market. We had Phoenix MLS stats that showed what and what category buyer offer comp was in on different commission levels. I pulled Connecticut, and it was much different than Phoenix. I look at the Florida MLS, it's much different than both of those. I've seen Lisa, numbers in Massachusetts. It's different than, you just, everything is different. It's based on the competitiveness of a market, the reasons people buy and sell there, how much, work do they want to hire for service. There's all these different variables that come into it, and that changes geographically as well.
Agreed. Well, I know we're almost at the end, and I have a hard stop at 11.
All right, since we're at the end, Lisa has a hard stop, but you can hear more from Lisa at BAMfest next week on Wednesday. It's a virtual event like no other. Because Tom has bailed in the last 2 pods, he won't be speaking at BAMfest.
You're lost, buddy.
It is our loss, but Lisa will be speaking at BAMfest. You still have time to sign up for that. It's an absolutely free virtual event. Tom will be at BAM Camp D.C. That one is, Tom shows up when, there's a price tag on the line. Lisa will be there as well.
This is such a load of shit. Like, I don't show up. Give me a fucking break, man.
BAMfest, BAM Camp DC, 2 events you can check out down below. BAM Camp DC, the 3 of us will be there. So if you want to hang out with me, Tom, and Lisa, love for you to be there. And Tom, you are very reliable, except for the last 2 weeks, but very reliable throughout our friendship.
I'm going to start taking attendance on our accountability call, Byron, and then we'll see how it all stacks up.
Oh, glass houses should not throw stones.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So,
all right, good pod. Have a good weekend, guys. We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. Transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code Knowledge Brokers and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BAMX.